Hi, Keith Woodhams, Shadow Executive Member for Highways and Transport, West Berkshire Council. Do you have an update on the electrification from Paddington to Newbury, or have the wires been cut?
Right. Okay, the chap here.
Ashwin described...
Hold on.
Ashwin described a passenger survey system based on punctuality of timetabled trains. Is there an alternative method for measuring passenger satisfaction, for example, on the underground?
Okay, while you're there, the chap next to you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, it's a related question on dignified disabled access to the network, and that is why I mean the network will take wheelchair users arranged in advance, but I'm told by a mobility scooter user whose mobility scooter is no bigger than a wheelchair that First Great Western won't allow her on the network at all. When are we going to remove this kind of discriminatory arrangement? And for disabled people who don't necessarily use a wheelchair but are just impaired mobility on 2 feet, which is a larger number. I was standing on a platform in Greater Manchester the other day watching people step up and down from a Class 142 unit, which must have been about 9 or 10 inches step above the platform at Walkden on the Greater Manchester. When are we going to eliminate that kind of difficulty of using the network?
Much better than abroad, of course, where in many places they don't have platforms at all. But anyway, and you have to step up to trains. Right, Mike, the ODA and disabled access?
Right, the 2 parts to your question then. One is speed and one is dignity. The indignity of not being able to get to any part of the transport system that you want to is probably more important than the speed of the issue. Our contribution to that, mainly at Stratford, is making the entire station accessible, and certainly with the work that TfL are doing on the London Overground and parts of the Underground, less than they had desired, will improve that situation, but I think it'll be 100 years before it's fully solved on the Underground.
Then we really will all be pushing up daisies.
Well, possibly not in your case.
Immortality has been granted, Christian.
The dignity aspect, obviously a key issue, and what you're saying, my wife is disabled and uses a mobility scooter, and we faced exactly that same problem. Again, one of our key philosophies in operating the Olympics is that the operation of the transport system, as opposed to constructing extra bits of it or making it bigger, will be left to the transport professionals. So the train operating companies and the infrastructure owners will deliver timetables that we say will be necessary within the limitations of their own infrastructure. A lot of discussion's been going on about mobility impaired people, including obviously disabled, but an awful lot of people will come with prams, pushchairs, heavy luggage in some cases, and so forth, and indeed day to day. So everything we're building is to suit both types. The speed with which people can get on and off trains is the key factor, I think, and you're absolutely right to point it out. The only limitation on that in the case of the Underground, obviously, is that there's very few access points, which will limit the numbers of people, unfortunately, that will be coming off, say, the Jubilee line and certainly the Central line during the games. DLR faces the reverse problem. There are lots of access points for the disabled and MIPs throughout the network, and so the problem there is volume and is layover time. There is a study being done into that right now by someone in this room who will be reporting it in a few weeks, and certainly our disabled advisor is sponsoring that report and has already produced some examples of how we can hope to solve some of that, at least with our delivery partners. But at the moment, don't have a foolproof answer on that one. It's certainly a problem. We've certainly identified it in our modelling. And probably in most cases there will have to be operational solutions to that rather than infrastructure solutions.
Ashwin?
We did some research 2 years ago into the assisted passenger reservation service and found a number of shortcomings, serious shortcomings. Passengers, one of our mystery shopper was left on a train for an extra 30 miles, and particularly connections and assistance not turning up as booked. Since then, we've been in discussions with people in the industry. We've taken the findings to individual train companies to try and get them to do to make changes in their own service, and we're aware of some process changes and that some train companies have made. We've also been trying to press the industry as a whole through ATOC to take on looking at the booking system, and we're aware that a funding package has been developed to replace and improve the booking system so that it offers the possibility of, for instance, text alerts for passengers, phone number contacts, and sort of better tracking of what's going on to passengers who are actually using the service. But as far as I'm aware, funding hasn't yet been secured for that package. The package has been designed, but not yet secured. The funding not yet secured. We're actually now going to repeat that mystery shop exercise in the next few weeks, and we'll publish the results in a few months' time to see whether things have improved in the intervening 2 years. But this is a very important issue because it's about people having the right to travel, as well as the kind of knock-on effects for the whole of the rail network when assistance doesn't turn up and actually trains have to stand for ages, as Dominic was saying. It has impacts on everyone.
Surely in these days of mobile telephones and universal mobile telephones, I mean, it shouldn't be beyond the wit of man to solve this issue of just.
Again, it's not complicated solutions, but I mean, 2 years ago, it was the case that many of the bookings were being faxed to stations, but the stations never received faxes, so no one ever checked the fax machines. So there were things like that going on, and so clearly we're not talking about things which sound that difficult to solve, but a small amount of investment is needed.
Richard?
There's also the design question as well. New East London line, again, pet subject of mine this weekend, got out with one of their managers at Rotherhithe a week or so ago and said, "Oh, this isn't level access to the train." "Oh no, Richard, this isn't an accessible station. Dalston, Haggerston, Hoxton, Whitechapel, level train to platform, but not at Rotherhithe and Wapping." So they, having completely rebuilt the station and the platform, they still haven't anticipated that one day a lift might go down to that platform. Why on earth is this not being done when we have just spent £380 million refurbishing an existing railway? Sorry, but it's bonkers.